Welcome to my humble abode. I am Yorkie the Talespinner, and this is our morning show, Tales Over Coffee, where we start the day with a cup of coffee and a narrative tale together to hopefully welcome a blessed day. And this is Suzerain, the tale of Anton Rayne's rather failed presidency of Sordland as it winds towards its end. Will of the State. We're in the final chapter, I believe. Probably very close to the end. Geopolitical. Lesbia shows evidence of Valslandian missiles in Helgeland. Yes, we saw. Chancellor Hagel's disgrace at Alliance of Nations. Yes, he was insane. World leads to gather at Alliance of Nations done. A report from Lockhaven. Navy overseas import and export flow. Under the orders of the military, Naval Corps are being transferred from the Conrad Naval Base to the port of Lockhaven in order to better oversee the flow of imports and exports into and out of Sordland. Republic Avenue looted as violent protests continue throughout Sordland. Atrocities in Lockhaven are reporting out of control looting at the shops along the Republic Avenue, with multiple windows broken and high-value items stolen. Election poll results. With the election drawing near, our staff at the Maroon Palace conducted general election polls all across Sordland. Our election polls showed that roughly 16% of Sordish citizens who were victims would vote for USP in the upcoming election. Not good. Peaceful protest turns violent. What was supposed to be a peaceful demonstration in downtown Jen turned violent as a number of participants brought weapons, leading to bloody clashes between protesters and counter-protesters. Several bystanders were caught in the crossfire. The number of wounded is not yet known. ATO modernises Sordland Air Force. Well, that's fine. I'm not going to bother reading that one. It looks like we're into Holsword now. Private meeting with David Risky, Officer President of Sordland. David had scheduled a private meeting with me, but he didn't specify what it was about. I heard a knock at the door. Mr. President, may I come in? Yes, please come in. Thank you. He slowly made his way towards a chair in front of my desk and sat down. First of all, thank you for your time. Don't mention it, what's wrong? I wanted to ask you how you're doing. Honestly, I'm tired, David. I'm tired of it all. Oh, I know the feeling, trust me, I know. Sometimes you just want to throw away all the responsibility and escape. Perhaps into the wilderness, perhaps to the sea. That would be nice, wouldn't it? But I could never do that. Unfortunately, men of power are bound by the duty and their responsibility to the nation. He started coughing. What a privilege for me. I had the chance to watch my student grow into a fine and strong leader in my lifetime. What a privilege indeed. You tried your best to bring reform to Sordland. That is a valiant in itself. It's okay to feel frustrated by failure, but change unfortunately doesn't happen easily. You paved a path for future generations to follow, and they will remember you for it. Wouldn't be possible without you. You're too kind, Mr. President. David coughed again, this time for longer. You're not feeling well, are you? I overheard a conversation the other day near the newspaper stand. It piqued my interest, so I kept listening. They were talking about you. They were calling you a radical centrist. What do you think of that? They weren't wrong. I am a centrist. My father, Arthur S. Whiskey, used to say, always know yourself. It's good to know what you do. So the elections are fast approaching. How do you feel about your chances? We will see. Uncertainty doesn't suit you, Mr. President. I'm afraid I have an announcement to make to you. Go on. After the term is done, I will be retiring. For what reason? I have been in this line of work for many decades now. I swore an oath to myself years ago. I would quit if I ever felt like I didn't have the physical capability to serve anymore. At that point, I would become a hindrance. This time has come, Mr. President. My bones are aching, my hands are shaking, my voice is failing. Besides, I am sure you can find a younger minister who is a little more full of life. He winked at me and chuckled, which turned into another cough. You've been a mentor, a teacher, and a friend. Thank you for your service to this country. It was an honour, Mr. President. David stood to leave. Okay. Before I wants to mention something. He looked around before grabbing my arm and lowering his voice. We are probably being watched, so I must be very brief. Be careful of the military. I think they're planning something. I have lived long enough to see 2 coups in my lifetime, and let's just say I have gotten better at recognizing the signs. You must remember what happened to my father, Anton. Just be careful and take care of your family. Take this as the last piece of advice from me. He suddenly raised his voice again. Best of luck, Anton. Thank you. He turned and left. Intriguing. Marcel Caronsi endorses President Rayne. Well, thank you, Marcel. You have stood by me. I will give you that. Rumberg. No, Agnolia. Agnolia puts forward bid to join ATO. Alright, you want in. President impeachment trial date set. After weeks of preliminary hearings, President Rayne's impeachment trial date has been set. His case will be heard by the Supreme Court in mid-October, just prior to his election. Given the President's disgraceful behaviour while in office, this day is long overdue. We look forward to the moment when the court finally brings Rayne to justice. Impeachment witnesses' reliability called into question. As President Rayne's impeachment trial approaches, Sordland today has obtained exclusive reports that cast doubt on the reliability of the so-called witnesses who will be testifying. There is reason to believe that many of the government officials asked to provide evidence against Rayne have personal vendettas against the President and were bribed by Rayne's enemies to give false testimony. This trial is nothing but a sham, meant to bring an ignoble end to the best presidency Sordland has ever had. I wouldn't say the best. I would agree with David. We failed, but we paved the way for dialogue and advancement going forward. President to be dethroned, at long last President Rayne, the most notorious abuser of power since Tarquin Sol himself, is set to be impeached for his criminal misdeeds. The Supreme Court will be hearing his case this month, with a group of witnesses from inside Rayne's administration to testify. Prosecution is a success. Rayne will be the first Swordist president to be impeached from office, and rightly so. People's Front coming strong. The new political force of Sordland, the People's Front, is showing a great increase in the polls as the elections approach. This fresh alliance between the WPB and CPS should give every Swordist citizen hope. If this trend continues, we may finally see a left-wing coalition come to power. Swordish Foreign Minister retires. David Whiskey, Sordland's Foreign Minister, has announced he will be retiring at the end of President Rayne's first term. The son of Sordland's first president, Whiskey has enjoyed a long and fruitful diplomatic career and served as something of a mentor to President Rayne during his student days. The Rayne administration has not yet announced a potential replacement for Mr. Whiskey, and should Rayne be elected to a second term. That's not happening. Rumberg possesses nuclear weapons. Alright, we know that. Agnolia puts forward a bid to join ATO. Yes, we suspected they would. Honestly. Existence of nuclear weapons in Rumberg confirmed. And intelligence has confirmed that the information from the Rumbergian whistleblower was true. Rumberg does have nuclear weapons, capable of threatening Sordland and Eastern Macopa. The Alliance of Nations ratified a barrage of sanctions on Rumberg by member states. Friday afternoon in the office. Office of the President of Sordland, Maroon Palace. The door opened and Lucian entered. Mr. President, there is a problem. A problem, Lucian? What kind of problem? Some cabinet members said they wanted to speak to you urgently. They are in the White Room. Please follow me. He started walking. Do you know what it's about? I was just told to come and get you, sir. I opened the doors and we entered the White Room. I looked around. Simon was sitting, playing with a pen in front of him. Pascal looked incredibly stressed. He wiped sweat off his brow. Good evening, Mr. President, said Simon. We are here to let you know that we are handing you our resignations. Your resignations? What's the meaning of this? Exactly what it looks like. We are resigning from our positions in the cabinet. We have our own reasons, but we simply cannot go on anymore after what happened. What can I do? How can I help? I'm sorry, but everyone in this room has already made their decision, and we won't turn back from it. I suppose we owe you our reasons. The government has not done enough, and now we have polio cases popping up everywhere around Sordland. Even in Hallsword. Who knows? Soon it might be you or your family. If you're not going to take responsibility for it, then I will as Minister of Health. You're taking responsibility by resigning? That doesn't even make sense. It does if you're taking the guilt form of some responsibility. He's not going to accept that we're going to resolve it because we haven't had the money to. But we could go into a more negative budget. Please, Pascal, we need you in the government. I'm sorry, Mr. President. I've already decided and nothing will turn me back from my decision. I have a duty to my people and I failed. I will hand you my resignation once our term is done, Mr. President. There's not going to be a need, Pascal. I think we all know that. I have failed my mission as the Minister of Economy. During our term, instead of stopping the recession, we have made it even worse and into the Swordish Depression. I blame myself for this. I couldn't offer you better solutions. I have proven that I am unfit to serve as Minister of Economy in Sordland. I'll resign at the end of our term. Please don't do this, Sam. I am to blame, not you. I'm afraid things are already in motion, Mr. President. I took a deep breath. I looked at their determined faces. I have no choice but to accept your resignations. The ministers left and I took a seat alone in the White Room. Simon had failed his job and could always be replaced by another expert. His departure wouldn't be felt, and the damage he has done wouldn't be forgotten. Simon didn't fail his job. We had a screwed-up economy and people making it worse, and I didn't make all the right decisions. Pascal's heart was in the right place, and it's sad that he's leaving. People come and go. Such is life. Wave of resignation strike Rayne administration. According to Maroon Palace insiders, several key members of Rayne's cabinet approached him yesterday. We saw two. Resigned. For what reason they did so when these resignations are set to go into effect, but this combined with everything else has been going on is unfortunately likely to cripple Rayne's election chances. What election chances? Future of Rayne's cabinet. Following last week's resignations from the cabinet, eyes turn to President Rayne as his term is approaching its end. No selections for the vacant seats have been announced yet. However, the timing bears some questions about the stability of the administration. Resignations. Who's on Rayne's side now? After the last... Just be yourself, Radical. We'll love you. We have to ask who, if anyone, is still supporting Anton Rayne. To have such valuable and experienced officials desert the administration so close to its election, both a crushing blow and a decisive referendum on the Rayne presidency. It's looking more and more like Rayne will go down in history as an ineffectual one-term president, just like his predecessor. I think that can be assumed at this point. We've made some progress by raising the voice of my wife and Ciara on women's rights, and we've opened dialogue on other things. That's all you can say. Dinner at home, residents of the Presidents of Sordland Hallsword. With my impeachment trial looming, I'd practically been sleeping at the Maroon Palace lately, but tonight I made a deliberate effort to get home. I told Monica and Diana I wanted a family supper, just like in the old days. Monica had promised to cook something special. The usual crowd of protesters were waiting for me outside the gates of the complex. The guards formed a cordon to let me through. Go to your door. Once inside, I locked the front door behind me. I hurried past them, went to my room and locked the front door behind me. That's already been said. I heard footsteps coming my way. Hi, Papa. Hug her. Opened my arms to embrace my daughter. She hugged me back happily. How was school today? She shrugged. I won a prize at the science fair. Honestly, I think they were teaching girls different stuff before because they knew we were smarter than boys. You could have a point, Diana. Diana smiled. Mama's in there. I've got to do some homework before dinner. I followed her with my eyes as she went upstairs. She was starting to look more and more like her mother. I stepped into the kitchen. Monica was stirring a pot on the stove, her back turned to me. Hug her from behind. God, Anton, don't startle me like that. You know I'm still on edge after the parade. You're right, that was a close call. I'm not going to use a second. That's demeaning her shock. Her surprise. Accept it. It wasn't a close call, for Serge. Why don't you go fix yourself a drink in the living room? I'll let you know when dinner's ready. I sat down in the living room, poured myself a bit of whiskey, and flipped through one of Monica's women's magazines. Diana came rushing back down the stairs and made a beeline for the coffee table. She picked up a pencil case. Almost forgot that. Frank never took his study so seriously. He does now. Papa, is it true how we got into Haltord State? Would you do that for me too? Just keep studying, so we'll never have to find out. Monica appeared in the doorway. She smiled at the two of us. Dinner's ready. The three of us gathered around the dining table. Monica ladled out bowls full of zabla, and the stew tasted as good as it smelled. I want to say something. I know the past 4 years have been hard on all of us. I'm so busy focusing on the needs of the Swordish people that I sometimes forgot about Sordland's most important people, my own wife and daughter. I know I haven't been there for either of you as much as I should have. So grateful to both of you for supporting me through it all. No, I'm going to take responsibility for not being there. I hope someday we'll be... I hope I can make it up to you someday. Monica's eyes were shining. And we'll have plenty of time for that because I'm retiring from politics at the end of this term. I'm considering that. I won't get re-elected anyway. But right now there's no time. We need to get it out of Sordland, all of us. The election's open. I'm taking you both on a holiday. I'm going to announce a retirement. Monica and Diana looked at me in shock. Anton, you can't do that. Not for my sake. It's not just for your sake. I'm sick and tired of this game. I want out. Monica sighed heavily. I suppose you don't have much of a chance of re-election anyway. And the things you did as president, maybe this is for the best. Diana still looked confused. Does that mean we're not going to live here anymore? We could stay here, but we don't have to. We can do whatever we want. As I spoke, I felt like a weight was lifting from my shoulders. I knew I'd made the right choice. I'm still going to keep fighting for women's rights, no matter who wins the election. And I won't stop fighting for the cause I believe in too, from a distance. Monica and I smiled at each other. Cool, it'll be an adventure, said Diana. Can we finish dinner now? Of course. Retirement speeches come later. The three of us dug into our food and started talking about what we'd do once I was no longer president. When we were done, I went up to my study and started drafting my retirement speech. Another report. Air Force issues civilian flight warning. The Air Force has issued a warning against non-essential air travel. Civilians are discouraged from booking flights except in case of business purposes or visit sick or dying relatives. One news article. Hope is not lost. In today's Communist Party rally, the CPS leader, Dennis Staller, made a speech to the largest crowd he has ever assembled. Tens of thousands came together in Valgan to give their support to the CPS leadership. In his speech, they may have censored us from press, bullied us on the streets, or took our votes away from us, but hope is not lost. They may have arrested us, tortured us, but they could never silence us. This year, the CPS will form a government, and I will transform this nation. Military assumes interior security duties. With the new powers that it's been granted, the Swordish military has assumed responsibility for keeping peace within Sordland's borders, overriding local police authority. Extra troops have been dispatched to the Camp Strong Arm to manage the growing unrest in Halsord. 2 minutes to midnight, President of Sordland. I woke up to a loud knock on the door. I managed to open my eyes and look at the clock. It's 11:58 p.m. Who could it be at this hour? Huffing and puffing, I put on my slippers. I looked at the other side of the bed. Monica was sleeping soundly. I started walking downstairs. I heard another knock on the door, louder this time. Keep walking. Another knock, this time even louder. Look through the peephole. Open the door. I could see Joseph standing outside, accompanied by a few soldiers. I opened the door and looked inside. I was met with 20 to 30 men waiting near personnel trucks, all in full combat gear. As I opened the door wider, they started moving towards me. What the hell is the meaning of this? No one replied. Instead, the soldiers stormed past me and into the house. They entered and went through every room, checking for threats. Once they were done, they stood ready. Joseph walked in. Soldiers saluted him. Well, explain to me what the hell is going on right now. I'm sorry, but your time is over, Mr. President. You are under arrest for your crimes against Sordland. Above all else, you have committed high treason and conspired against the will of your people. You can take me, but please don't hurt my family. Rest assured, your family will be under our watch and they will remain safe. That is, of course, if you cooperate. The military had no choice but to take over the government to ensure the well-being of Sordland and its people. The Grand National Assembly is hereby abolished, along with immunity of members of the Parliament. In addition, a curfew is now in effect, and all gatherings are banned until further notice. All government officials who are suspected of betraying their country will be tried in military court and made to answer for their crimes. That includes you, Mr. President. You are destroying our democracy. No, we are protecting our country. Take him away. I don't want to see his face. He will wait in a cell in Anton Rayne prison until his trial. A soldier started approaching me. Anton, no, I won't let you take him. Diana appeared at the top of the stairs. She rubbed her eyes in disbelief. Mama, where are they taking him? Monica pulled on my jacket. A soldier moved in and shoved her away forcefully. Tears welled up in her eyes. Anton. Everything will be fine, Monica. I'm saying in front of my daughter. Take care of Diana. No, you can't take him away, please. This is unconstitutional. Another soldier pulled out handcuffs. No need for handcuffs. I know when I have no way out. The soldier stopped in his tracks and looked at Joseph for confirmation. He nodded. His men escorted me to the truck. I realized I still had my slippers on. They roughly shoved me into the back of the vehicle, as they would a condemned criminal. The engine rumbled to life, and the truck started moving. Government budget decreased. You think? Well, move on to continue with the next turn. Sometime later. I'm thinking this is probably the close. No news, no reports, just this. Waiting for the day of trial. Anton Rayne prison. Antel. I was making my 14th scratch on the wall when the warden opened the cell door. My first time seeing a person since the military detained me. He put handcuffs on my wrist and we started walking. I barely had enough energy to ask where we were going. I just assumed the worst. He told me today was the day of my trial. While we were walking, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in a metal door. My beard had grown and my cheeks were sunken. The condition I was held in was showing. I was the only one loaded into the prison truck. After a couple of hours had passed, we finally came to a stop. After I exited the vehicle, I held my head up and saw the insignia of the Supreme Court. Soldiers grabbed my arms and led me inside. They gestured towards a table in the courtroom. Take a seat. Looking around, I saw the flags of Swedish armed forces hanging down from the walls, covering crests of the Supreme Court. The room was completely empty except for me and the soldiers on guard. I looked at the vacant seats on the bench. The door opened and General Joseph Lancier entered alone. The soldiers saluted and he saluted back. I watched him take his seat comfortably. Ed 2, Brutus. Normally you are supposed to rise when a judge enters the room, Mr. Rayne. You're just a usurper. Cranky, aren't we? I suppose that's what staying in a cell for weeks does to people. There is no time to waste, let's begin. This military court will now handle the case of Anton Rayne, the former president of Sordland. Do you know why you are here? Yes, I do. We all know our sins. You're accused of high treason against Sordland, Mr. Rayne. If there is any betrayal here, it is yours against the democratically elected president and government. Shut your mouth, you will only speak when spoken to. You did speak to me. You have failed to govern your people, and instead, as a result of your actions, they are revolting. If you can't put an end to this, then we will. You spat on the very foundation that this country was built on. It is clear to me that you are actively trying to destroy our country from inside. And any enemy of Sordland must pay the ultimate price. What do you have to say for yourself, Mr. Rayne? This is criminal. You neither have the right nor authority to judge me. Where are the justices? This is a power grab in disguise for of protecting the Republic. I demand a proper trial. You finished? Shall we move on then? And it doesn't matter what I say, does it? No, not really. His mouth twitched upwards as a smirk started to form on his face. You know what? Screw you. You dare say that to the head of your own country's military? You're an incorrigible traitor, Mr. Rayne. At least let me see my family again. They are innocent. We do not negotiate with traitors, Mr. Rayne. Permission denied. No need to delay this further. I will now announce the verdict of the case. I took a deep breath. And there it is. Am I blindfolded before a firing squad? Is that what we have? 1958, Supreme Court of Sordland. Joseph Lancia tapped the gavel. The sound echoed through the empty courtroom. He rose from his seat, knowing what was coming next. You felt that you did your best for Sordland, no matter what. The next words you heard were, I hereby decide that you are guilty. You thought about how you would go down in history as the victim of yet another of Sordland's coups. But he wasn't done speaking. For the magnitude and the crimes you have committed against Sordland, I am sentencing you to life in prison. Soldiers grabbed your arms and started walking you towards the door. As you were walking, you worried about the future of your family. 1959, Elton Rock Prison. Your cell was cold and lonely. The only decorations you put on the damp, dark walls were photos of Frank and Diana. For a while, reading was the only thing you could do. After finishing the precious book sent by Monica, you kept yourself busy by writing your own memoir. You were happy that at least your family was allowed to visit a jail once a month. Time flies in jail. 1960, you learned in prison that after 2 years, a military junta finally gave the power back to the people. The political parties of the Grand National Assembly were re-established. You hoped that someone would hang Joseph for his crimes. 1964, Ansel Rock Prison. Frank visited you for the first time in years, bringing along his wife and son. They reminded you of your own family in better times. You held your grandson for the first time. He squirmed and started crying in your arms. Frank told you that he had joined the ranks of the People's Freedom and Justice Party. You congratulated him. Your future is yours, my son. Embrace it and be strong. Achieve what your father could not. 1965. After 7 years in jail, Sordland's new president finally granted amnesty to political prisoners from the military rule days. You looked at yourself in the mirror as you were packing your belongings to leave. You had grown old. You took your first step outside. Freedom felt good. Monica, Diana, and Frank were waiting for you. Unfortunately, the years hadn't been kind to Monica, but they hadn't been kind to you either. 1967. Getting used to being a free man took years. You finally felt confident enough to plan what you would do the rest of your life. You chose to retire to the countryside. Life was good. You took up various hobbies like gardening or woodworking. Out of boredom, you became a carpenter. Your new past crimes earned you just enough money to get by. You had all the time in the world in 1973. 1974, a week after your 66th birthday, a woman knocked on your door. She was a young upstart journalist fascinated by your life story. No matter what you did, she kept coming back. Finally, you gave in. She said she was working on a book about you. You helped her as best you could. After many hours of interview, she said that she had enough information and disappeared from your life. You looked up the name she had given you, but you couldn't find it anywhere. You suspected she'd used an alias. You wondered why. You heard a knock on the door. It was a delivery man with a large, heavy package. The package was filled with copies of books. There was a small note on top. Thank you, Carol Circus. You picked up the book. Circus? What did she have to say? How guilty are we? In the eyes of, I assume, the child of the man who was assassinated early on. Faintly smiled, story of Anton Rayne. Fourth President of Sordland, in office 1954 to 1958. Vice President Peter Vector and Alvin Clavin. Preceded by Ewald Alfonso. Succeeded by Josef Lancia. Personal details, born 1908. Political party USP. Spouse Monica Rayne. Children Frank Rayne, Deanna Rayne. Alma mater HSU, Household State University, Law. We were centrist, more or less. Slightly leaning towards reformism and millennialism. Peter Vecton was close to us but dead centre. Gloria Tory. Solist. Where's Sierra? Alvin Clavin. Alright, well, I don't know why Sierra's not on there, but alright. 1.6 million lost their jobs. 29,213 people died due to complications related to polio. During street clashes, 52 officers and 228 protesters were killed. 8,821 protesters were arrested. 779 people were killed during the clashes between Red Youth and Young Swords. 1,314 conscripts died in training. 3,390 people with bloodish descent were jailed and 239 were killed. 3,899 legal cases were delayed. 1,340 women won a domestic violence case at the courts, and 403,380 girls were enrolled at secondary education for the first time. 81,000 companies declared bankruptcy. Private assets worth 1 billion Swedish ren were seized by the state. And so we reach the end. Ended by a military coup, resulting in years in prison, before re-establishing myself with my wife, retiring to the country. I would like to know if she managed to progress the case for women and girls more. I hope she did. But that's beyond the tale of just Anton Rayne, of course. Many would say this was a bad ending. To me, it's an ending. A tragedy, a disaster, is just as important in narrative history as a positive work is. Not everything ends well. So I like the ending. But I still consider this a failed run, not because of the ending. I've mentioned this before. For me, success or failure in a narrative game means whether you live the tale. I initially enacted the idea of President Rayne being a powermonger and a traditionalist, and I rapidly fell away from that. I consider this a fail because I failed to stick with the President Rayne that I imagined. That's on me. This game has a lot of potential. The question is, will I go for another ending? Will I try again? And the answer is no. Because while it has a lot of good stuff in it, there is just so much that I don't like. The fact is, on a lot of issues like immigration, things that need finesse, you're forced to take a sledgehammer approach and either oppose immigration or support immigration, not work on specific things. That's not how politics works in general. This is why you have gun-hating Republicans, why you have pro-choice Republicans, why you have pro-life Democrats and gun-toting Democrats, and so forth. It's not one thing. It's a variety of issues, and it's finesse, not the blunt hammer that this has proven to be. But more than that, on certain issues, often personal ones, such as finding out about Vecturn's infidelity, my intention was to call his wife, I've forgotten her name now, and offer support. We'd been friends for many years, all four of us, and her husband had turned into a traitor to her and abandoned the country. Yes, dealing with the issues of the country was important and would come later, but I wanted to call her to offer support. I called her, that was an option. Offering support really wasn't. And an omission like that is just offensive. The options that were there should have been, well, admitting, just saying, no, I'm just calling to see if you need anything, etc. I know this is set in the 1950s and they were different times. But it doesn't matter which different times you look at, there are always people who go against those times. In pro-slavery times, there were abolitionists. When interracial marriage was illegal, there were interracial couples. Rarer, definitely rarer, because they could put their life on the line. But they were there. This is a game about choice. Denying important choices is wrong. This game will work for a lot of people. It has a lot of good. For me, it doesn't. Therefore, I can pretty much say I'll never play it again. I've enjoyed some of my time with it. I've been pissed off at other times with it. But it's not the fact that I was impeached that makes me say I won't even recommend this game anymore. It's the lack of options and the jackhammer or sledgehammer approach to politics. No. It has potential. It doesn't fulfill it in my book. Thank you for your time. I may hold off on Sales Over Coffee for the rest of the month because I'm rushing through Humble Opinion in order to prepare for Steam Next Fest coming up on the 13th. So I'm going to have a bunch of that stuff going on, at least one a day, hopefully, of a new demo. So I'm going to hold off on doing a morning show like this. But by the end of the month, we'll pick something else up. From now, I'm Yorkie the Talespinner, and I thank you for your time. Farewell.